Today I've got this 8-course Renaissance lute by Stephen Murphy on my bench for some repairs. And I think I'll probably be doing a video about that in detail. But while I was disassembling and cleaning it, I realized that this was a great opportunity for me to demonstrate something that is asked often, which is, why are there mechanical fasteners in a lute? And if you don't know, in a historic or modern lute, there are a couple of mechanical fasteners, which is to say, things that are not just a joint in wood, but rather are an added additional component meant to hold two things together without the use of an adhesive or glue. One is between the neck block and the neck of the instrument itself. This is usually a large forged nail or screw. There are arguments for either. The screw is easier to remove if it needs to, but the nail is the more historic choice and is a bit more flexible. There's another in the joint between the neck and the peg box. I can show you clearly on this instrument where a screw has been placed through the bottom component of the peg box into the neck at a shallow angle. It's not a large screw, just long enough to bite in, and then the hole is filled with a matching, or as close as you can get to matching, plug. This is even less conspicuous on an instrument where the peg box is dyed black. Either way, it's not seen much because it's behind the strings inside the peg box on that little slope. Let's return to the Murphy to talk about why we use those mechanical fasteners. Consider the peg box. If we were to try to do something fancier and dovetail this into the neck, that would require us to flare the bottom of the peg box, or rather to reduce it. So we would be coming in, we would be creating a shoulder at the bottom here, and then a flare. Now, there's not a lot of neck to go into. It's a fairly thin thing. And if we removed enough material to create a dovetail socket, what we would be doing is creating two inside corners into this extremely thin sliver of the neck core. That concentrates all the stresses on that peg box into those corners, and as it expands and contracts seasonally, will eventually lead to cracking down the neck, and we don't want that. The strongest possible joint we can make here is, in fact, this rebate, in which the peg box is fully supported on its back and its short face, and there are no stress points in short grain, or rather running with the long grain of the neck. Any expansion and contraction can happen naturally without making anything split or blow up. Similarly, at the neck, we have a sloped joint because lute bodies are notoriously malleable. Before the soundboard goes on, they're sort of weebly wobbly, and you can wind up manipulating them into a lot of different shapes if you're not careful. Setting the neck angle is a little iffy, and it's easier to get this right if you have a scarf joint that you can adjust or even shim a little bit, rather than trying to create some sort of dovetailed or tenoned neck block like you'd see in a modern guitar. The other main advantage is the whole reason I'm showing you this Murphy lute in the first place. What happens when a joint fails? Hide glue is reversible and can be repaired. It's also brittle, which means in a hard blow, it's likely to shatter rather than the wood around it breaking. These are both very good in terms of being a repair person. If this instrument's neck takes a strong blow, the neck joint is likely to separate rather than shattering the ribs in the curve coming to the neck block. Or if the peg box takes a blow, this joint will come unglued rather than snapping the neck or the neck block. This is all good. But if this is under, let's see, this is an 8-course, so that's 15 strings at 6 pounds a piece. So that's what, 90 pounds of tension on this instrument. If one of those joints fails, this whole neck or this peg box suddenly come flying around and your instrument is it's destroyed. It's toast. It's done. Having a mechanical fastener in here gives it the ability to break cleanly, but without fully releasing, so that you can relieve the tension in a controlled way and remove it. That's especially clear here because if you look at this peg box, you can see that it is very loose. This is no longer at all glued. It's only held in there by the mechanical fastener. And this still functioned because with a mechanical fastener in here, pinning it in, the tension of the strings pulls it tighter into the rebate rather than just pivoting it around and throwing it into the bridge of the instrument. This one is also interesting because it does not have a metal mechanical fastener. If I can get it to show here, you can see when I move this peg box that what appears to be a plug does not actually move with it. So that's a dowel. This is unusual for exactly the reason you see here. Dowels fail. Dowels always fail. To Mr. Murphy's credit, this was not his work. This was added by a guitar maker, a very fine guitar maker who I will not name, but who was a little out of their depth repairing a lute. And so my work today is to remove that dowel, set this peg box free, and get it reattached. But that is my demonstration to you of why we have these mechanical fasteners. They are an important fail-safe, which means that although this wobbly peg box is going to make fighting the diuresis seem like a cakewalk, it's not going to destroy your instrument. We can fix it thanks to a mechanical fastener.